So I feel a little bad for Wolves fans because once Karl-Anthony Towns went down with the wrist injury, you knew it was going to be pretty tough for this team to win games, and they have not won a single game since Towns got hurt. And there's even doubt that he's going to play in their next game against the Spurs. We'll have to see. Even if Towns comes back in a short manner of time here, which he better for the sake of this team's season, they've already dug such a hole for themselves that I don't know if they've really got a shot to make any sort of noise this year. They're currently the 15th seed. Granted, they're only a game and a half out of the play-in tournament, but it is so competitive to get to the top 10 in the West, especially because, what the hell is OKC right now? I mean, if the Thunder do fall off, which we're probably going to expect them to do, you're still dealing with the fact that Denver's going to get back up into the playoff picture. It's just really tough. And so for the Wolves to have had any sort of shot, they would have had to come out of the gates just really killing it, and the Towns injury just stopped that pretty early on. Now, if we can talk about the team itself around Karl-Anthony Towns, or outside of Towns, I should say, it's just way too difficult for them to score right now. I mean, they have had some high point totals. That's more because of pace than their actual offense being good. They're 17th, 18th in offensive rating in their last 5 games. And, I mean, here's an example for you. Against the Blazers, where they really lost that game in the second quarter, the Blazers had Enes Kanter in the game. He was killing the Wolves on one end, offensive rebounds, post-ups, that sort of thing. And on the other end, the Wolves were attempting to go at him in pick and rolls, and they couldn't do it. They couldn't get by him. So it's like Rubio going at him, he's not good enough, and it's not like D'Lo can play every single minute. And so then the Blazers just got transition threes, and that was pretty much the game. Against Denver, they couldn't stop kind of anything the Nuggets wanted to do, whether it was Jokic, just his general existence. They tried double-teaming Jokic a couple times in both of those games, and that went exactly how you'd expect it to go. There are a couple bad miscommunications where Monte Morris is just wide open on a pretty routine offensive possession. Will Barton was killing them on cuts. They were getting a lot of penetration from Gary Harris and that sort of thing. They just can't stop anybody. And part of that is because they don't have a Kogi. So they're missing their best offensive player, and do we consider Okogie the best defender on this team? He could be. So what does Ryan Saunders do? Well, I think the thing that he's thinking about the most right now is what is the proper lineup. If I look at their lineups over the last 5 games, they're all bad. There is a random D'Lo, Beasley, Hernan-Gomez, Vanderbilt, Culver lineup that's actually had some success in 11 minutes, so take that for what you will. That's the only bright spot that I can find. They have a bunch of guys who are one-way players. You have Beasley and D'Lo, offense first players. You got Rubio, who is one of the more two-way guys on this team, but even so, without Towns here, his job and his lack of spacing just become more tough on the team. Hernan-Gomez is another offense first guy. Culver is better defensively than on offense right now. Edwards he's 9 games into his career, so there's going to be good and bad. That was the gist with him coming into this whole thing. And if you're Ryan Saunders, it's do you try to sort of bridge the gap as best you can between offense and defense? I should mention Naz Reid as well in this whole thing. But do you go all offense? Do you go all defense? Do you try to mix up the two of them? So far, nothing much is working. If you look at their last 3 games, their starting lineup has been Hernan-Gomez, Beasley, D'Lo, Culver, and Ed Davis. I would consider that a lineup where Saunders is attempting to get the best of both worlds, but again, without Okogie, your best defensive player, it's are you really getting that much defense with that team? So then you might think, well, okay, let's go with a more offensive lineup. Well, to be honest, if you already have D'Lo, Beasley, and Hernan-Gomez in there, I'm not really sure what else you could really do to maximize your chances of scoring. Is Rubio in that lineup? I mean, he's a smart offensive player, but teams also don't really guard him. But then it's if he's not in there, then the ball handling gets pretty thin. I mean, if you throw Layman in there, well, his threes haven't even been good this season, when in the past they have been. Just on pure talent, you're probably putting Anthony Edwards in there. I mean, that might be the only option. I don't know. It's pretty thin. Again, without Karl-Anthony Towns, it's just how the hell is this team going to generate points? Now, Jared Vanderbilt has been a small bright spot for them the last couple games. 6'9", might have more of a center's game than a power forward's, but you'd think with him setting screens and rolling to the basket and attacking the offensive glass, he can still make it work on offense. And then defensively, he's probably already one of their better guys on that side of the floor, honestly. Now, there are other problems right now, the big one being they're the worst defensive rebounding team in the league. And it's not a coincidence, they're also 28th in opponent second chance points per game. And they're also giving up 16 opponent fast break points a game, which would be 16th in the NBA. So in some ways, they're beating themselves. Even so, without a Kogi and with so many possessions where the other team is then getting to go in transition because the Wolves don't make a basket or get fouled, there's not a real chance for them to be an awesome defensive team, but you'd think if they could at least clean up the fundamentals, they could go from 30th, which they are right now, to, 22nd. Even that would be a massive jump for them right now and would really make their lives a lot easier. And again, would probably allow them to get a couple extra possessions and transition themselves, but it just is what it is, man. I mean, D'Lo, he's been pretty okay. He's averaging 20 points on 56% true shooting. He still is not shooting enough free throws, and he's also missing shots at the line right now. But, that's D'Angelo Russell. Like, he's not a super athlete. He doesn't draw contact like that. He's found a way to make it work pretty okay. And you'd think with him and Towns, that could have been a pretty alright 1-2 punch on offense. If I can touch on Edwards a bit, I do want to do another Edwards video. I'll probably end up doing semi-annual LaMelo, Edwards, and Wiseman videos throughout the season, because those are the three most talked about guys, even if Halliburton is the best one right now. Edwards has had a couple of passes that have been pretty cool if you see some of these games, and when he's operating in the pick and roll, where he's able to get it to a shooter in the corner, and that's kind of intriguing. His overall passing numbers have not been too good. I think he has basically the same amount of turnovers as assists. He actually does so far this season. I think his handle in general needs to get better. There are times when it does look a little loose. However, there are also times where he's able to pull off a pretty good-looking one-on-one move against somebody. He had a number of those in the Blazers game just recently. His shooting... here's the thing with Edwards' shooting, man. He either needs to stop taking these contested threes or he needs to get really good at them. It's one or the other. If he doesn't do either one and he just keeps shooting them, then he's not going to be that good in the NBA. If you look at some of his shooting games, so this last one, he was 3 for 10, which that's not good. 1 for 7 the game before that. 1 for 3 is cool. 2 for 8, not so good. 4 for 7 is very good. The game before that was 1 for 9. It's not too difficult to see the difference between Anthony Edwards being good or not. Now, that said, he did have 26 against the Blazers in his last game. He had a number of pretty good drives in that one where he was beating guys in one-on-one situations. And he also shot 7 free throws. And it's just like when I see him beating CJ McCollum off the dribble, or when I see him attacking a closeout, or I think he had one pick and roll possession in that fourth quarter as well. I just think he can do that stuff so much more often, but the guy likes his jump shots. But again, if they had their center who can shoot 40% on 7 or 8 threes a game and post up and go off the dribble and draw attention from defenses, well, then you'd think Edwards would be in a better position to get some better looks and that sort of thing. So, that's the gist. We knew going into this it was going to be tough for them to make the playoffs, but if it was going to happen, it would be on the back of Towns being amazing, and he hasn't been here. And, if this team didn't have Karl-Anthony Towns, they would win, would they win 20 games in a 72-game season? Perhaps, but it would be tough. That's the gist.